fascism. It is an extremist organisation. Its offshoot, the Hamas in the Gaza, when it got into power, immediately killed its opposition, and it hasn't had another election. It was just another one announced, July the 9th this year. There was meant to be another election in the Palestinian areas. The Hamas have said no. They are a one-vote, once political party, and we can't be so naive to think we can't. No. They cannot be so naive as to think that the Brotherhood, if they came to power in Egypt, would be anything other than a disaster for the region.
Well,
the state
do we have the right to intervene to prevent it?
No. Let me clarify this. So the following: it is very unwise for leaders like William Hague, David Cameron, and Barack Obama to be saying who they would like to run Egypt. It's a choice for the Egyptian people, and they should remain silent. But that does not mean that behind the scenes and elsewhere you cannot say that the government, whatever it is that comes in Egypt, has to abide by, among other things, international norms, peace treaties, including the Treaty of Peace that has kept peace between Egypt and Israel for 3 decades now. And this is a very, very important thing, because if the Brotherhood comes in and says, as their leaders have said in recent days, that they will immediately block the Suez Canal and start a war with Israel, then we are collectively going to be, and the Middle East is going to be in serious trouble.
How can you order a new government to abide by a treaty made by Mubarak?
Well, in the following way,
between Egypt and Israel.
When
you say you don't want intervention,
by Sadat.
In the following way, by saying that by using soft power, by encouraging the country to go in a certain way, by making it clear that for Egypt to become a normalised country, it has to have a normal government.
None up there
and
in the check shirt, the blue check shirt. It's somebody with a striped shirt. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think the big difference between Eastern Europe and the Middle East is Islam. And some would say that Islam is not compatible with democracy.
Okay.
And tell that to the Indonesians. Yeah, Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world and is a democracy. So.
What do you say?
I think it's very unfortunate that the West was caught napping this time by the events in Tunisia and Egypt, in the sense that the West was able to micromanage the East European affairs when the East Europeans was crumbling down. Now the West has been caught napping. It's trying to micromanage what is happening in Egypt and Tunisia, which is unfortunate.
You think they are doing this behind the scenes?
I think they are doing it behind the scenes, and it is
publicly they're saying it's up to those countries to decide.
No, I think what is happening is by prescribing who should and who should not be maybe leading the government, the Egyptians also understand that maybe that is a fellow we should refuse. Okay. They might probably go the other way.
The woman up there on the left there. Yes.
I find what Douglas Murray is saying objectionable. He's saying in public, oh, the leaders, we mustn't say who should be in power in Egypt, but actually you're advocating behind-the-scenes action and covert action to influence it. And you also seem to me to be saying that the will of the Egyptian people, should they democratically elect the Muslim Brotherhood, who I notice you refer to as the Brotherhood, because it makes them sound more mysterious and dangerous, that actually we should start interfering then and telling Egyptians how they should vote and how their government should behave.
I hope I made it clear that I think that it would be regrettable for the Egyptian people, for the region and the international community, if an extremist organisation like the Brotherhood took control of Egypt, did what it did in the Gaza, murdered the opposition and never had another election. Okay. I hope you would join me in regretting that as well.
Let's hear from Jacqui Smith, and then I'll go back to you, sir. Jacqui.
I think there's been something very inspiring over the last 15 days with the show of people coming onto the streets in Egypt to demand changes, to demand a transition to democracy. And I think, therefore, the events this evening, if, as you say, David, Mubarak has said that he won't be going, are quite worrying. Earlier on this evening, it seemed to me, even through the TV screens, there was a tangible feel of hope and expectation. And to have that removed, as it seems to be, I fear may well mean that the largely peaceful show of people power up to this point might well be in jeopardy, and I hope that that
Jacqui,
isn't.
Okay, do you think it was wrong of Tony Blair to go and stay in Hosni Mubarak's villa on a free holiday a few years ago?
Oh, I just think that's a cheap...
It's not a cheap shot. It's a very good question. The man's a dictator. We're now saying it's great he's going, but all of our governments were fine with him. Hillary Clinton said he's a close personal family friend.
I'm disappointed.
It's fine on the way out. Everyone says, oh, we hate him. But when he was in office, we were all mates with him.
The woman with the blue scarf on.
I just think we should really put our trust in the Egyptian people who've been there since January the 25th. They have spent all of their time. It's taken a simple man from Google to try and motivate everybody and manifest this huge, not singly, not on his own, but he has had this effect, which is, I couldn't agree with you more, Jacqui. I think it has actually galvanised people, and there is a new initiative, a new momentum, and I think it's really important we just leave it to them temporarily to see how it goes, but I do worry for them.
And the man at the very back,
I feel it should be up to the Egyptian people to decide who they're going to have as their government next, but I do feel that people like William Hague, David Cameron, Barack Obama will influence that decision, and it might be based on Israel and oil, which isn't really in the best interest of the Egyptian people.
And you, sir, on the left here, and then I'll take a last point from you up there, yes.
The question was about the domino effect that this might have, and I think the interesting part is that in Iran, the leader of the opposition is being put under house arrest because he's invited a similar thing in Iran. Wouldn't it be amazing if, instead of our preferred way of getting rid of dictators and repressive governments in the Middle East, like using shock and awe and causing millions of people to lose their lives, a new way of doing this emerged which solved the problem in Iran?
Right. And you, sir, briefly if you would.
My sister and my brother-in-law live in Cairo, and they've told me Egyptians never tell us who should be our government. And they believe people power and protesting is the best way forward. And the biggest obstacle to democracy are the dictators backed by British and American military. That's the problem. Get our military out of these countries, bring them back home.
They're not in their countries. They're not there. We don't have military in these countries.
Right. Well, I think you're referring to funding of the military in Egypt by the Americans.
Well, $1.5 billion in
Iraq, in Saudi Arabia.
All right.
We have our army training.
There are no troops in Saudi Arabia. There are no British troops in Iraq.
All right, let's not go down that road. Let's go to another question. Judy Harper, please.
Is David Cameron's concept of the big society influenced badly because of the cuts to particularly the government cuts to the voluntary sector? Does it remain a realistic concept?
Yes, this was brought to a head this week by the retiring Community Service Volunteers Director, Dame Elizabeth Hoodless, herself a Labour voter for many years, so I don't know whether there's politics in it or not, but Min Campbell, you would no doubt say.
No, not at all.
Do you think that the concept of the big society is realistic?
Well, I've always wondered what the concept was. Because in my constituency, there already is a big society. There are a host of voluntary organisations, choral societies, sports clubs, charitable organisations, all of whom contribute to the life of the community in which they live.
Are they all threatened?
No, they're not. And a lot of them, it's true, a lot of them have had great public support. But in these straitened times, when we pay £120 million every day in interest, when we borrow £400 million every day just to make up the difference between income and expenditure, then I'm afraid there is no section of public expenditure that hasn't got to come under review. But there is a response, and it's this: that those of us who perhaps give £10 or £20 should now give more. If we're serious about maintaining the fabric of the communities in which we live, we should be willing to give a greater contribution. And that, if it's sufficiently generous, will certainly compensate for any difficulties which local voluntary organisations may be experiencing.
Okay, so no threat. Jacqui Smith, do you agree with that?
Well, I certainly believe that encouraging people to have a greater role in their community, promoting volunteering, giving people choice and say in their public services are good things. That, of course, is why the Labour government did them as well. What I am unclear about, and where I agree with Ming, is what the big society, which of course is David Cameron's big selling point, it's his initiative, what it actually means and the difference that it makes.
Well, Elizabeth, to interrupt you, Elizabeth Hoodless said it meant the voluntary sector being decimated. Well, presumably that's what she meant by the big society being threatened, whatever
exactly.
that is.
I mean, there are two problems.
Was she right to say that?
I think she was. There are two problems. First of all, we don't know what it is and how we should be actually promoting it, and it's David Cameron's big idea. And secondly, whatever it is, it's not helped by enormous cuts, particularly in local government, which is removing precisely the partnership between good local voluntary organisations and local government and others, which is what has been created